We begin this hour with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's controversial visit to Washington. Today, he will meet separately with President Biden and Vice President Harris after a defiant and forceful speech to Congress yesterday. He promised total victory over Hamas and slammed protesters as, quote, useful idiots of Iran. Outside the Capitol, demonstrators upset about the visit and the war in Gaza clashed with police. Scott McFarland was inside the House chamber. Scott, good morning. A lot going on.
And Nate, good morning to you. Netanyahu's fiery speech to a rare joint meeting of Congress lauded the U.S. for its support of Israel, but tried to argue for more support for the war against Hamas. It happened as protests gathered in Tel Aviv, here in Washington, and even inside the House chamber, where dozens of Democrats boycotted the address.
The hands of the Jewish state will never be shackled. Israel will always defend itself.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended his months-long unrelenting war against Hamas.
We're not only protecting ourselves, we're protecting you.
And argued it's in America's shared interest, saying the October 7th attack on Israel was a first strike by enemies who have their sights set on the U.S.
Our enemies are your enemies. Our fight is your fight, and our victory will be your victory.
But with no ceasefire deal to bring hostages home and the Palestinian death toll nearing 40,000 people, including many civilians, the Prime Minister faced fierce criticism. Michigan Democrat Rashida Tlaib held a sign which read "War Criminal," and dozens of lawmakers boycotted the address altogether.
Well, I think it's important not to legitimize a leader who has attacked democracy, who has contributed to so much pain and so much discord.
Outside the Capitol, a crowd of thousands of war protesters gathered, sometimes clashing with police, as some burned a U.S. flag and others wrote "Hamas is coming" on a statue. In Tel Aviv, CBS's Deborah Patza was there as demonstrators watched Netanyahu's speech live on TV.
People here say they're not interested in what Netanyahu has to say. The only thing they want to hear from their prime minister is that there's a deal.
Maya Roman was outside the House chamber in Washington and feels the same. She has a relative who remains a hostage of Hamas.
You have terrible terrorists like Yahya Sinwar finally willing to bring our loved ones back to end this war. You have to take advantage of that. You can't let it slip between our fingers. There's no time to waste.
In addition to his meeting with President Biden today and Vice President Harris, Netanyahu set to meet with former President Trump tomorrow in Florida. Nate?
Scott, thank you.
Netanyahu is really not popular with Israelis these days. He's also not popular with American Jews, even supporters of Israel. Jerry Nadler, Representative Jerry Nadler, is like the dean of the Jewish caucus. He said the day before Netanyahu spoke that he's the worst leader of Israel going back 2,000 years in history since the sacking of the Second Temple. So it's not a great moment for Netanyahu. It might be time for him to exit the stage.
Yeah.